This is Greg Kelly. Donate now to Toys for Tots, which works year-round. Go to toysfortots.org. Toys for Tots supports children in need throughout the year with programs like the Toys for Tots Literacy Program. Established in 2008, it has provided over 63 million books to disadvantaged children. The Toys for Tots Literacy Program is committed to providing disadvantaged children with direct access to books and educational resources that enhance their ability to read and communicate effectively. Go to toysfortots.org.
Listen, all you New Yorkers. Taxi!
Okay, man, we're looking around.
This is the 77 WABC minicast.
Now, from New York City to the world, it's Dominic Carter.
That now iconic photo racking up millions of online views, capturing an NYPD chief leaping over a barricade in a single bound to take down one of the wannabe terrorists from Saturday here in New York City. Dominic Carter here with you. The number to reach me live. We see your calls coming in right now. 800-848-9222. Imagine how differently this could have been handled in a positive way. From the mayor. What a statement that Mamdani could have made if, for example, he had hosted those two hero cops instead of a terrorist sympathizer at Gracie Mansion 24 hours after all of this happened. If he had brought to Gracie Mansion NYPD Chief Aaron Edwards, who jumped over the barricade to tackle one of the suspects, and Sergeant Luis Navarro, they literally leapt into action to nab the two men outside the mayor's official residence. So having the two finest, for example, at a Gracie Mansion meal the next evening, would have signaled major respect for the men and women in blue who keep the city safe, and it would have been a rejection of the hateful brand of Islam that inspired the suspects. And I'm not saying all of Islam is bad. I'm saying the part that inspires guys and women to do bad things. But the mayor chose instead to make a public point, that is, of hosting this anti-Israel organizer, Mahmoud Khalil, for a Ramadan dinner to mark the 1-year anniversary of his initial detention in a deportation case. And it's still ongoing. And so, again, these guys are heroes, the NYPD folks that didn't think twice, on the other hand. Mahmoud Khalil is an ex-Columbia University graduate student, infamous for his anti-Israel and pro-Hamas activism. His arrest by ICE and his pending deportation case over an apparent green card fraud. I want you to listen to part of a story from ABC News about the suspicious items linked to the two teens found at a storage unit outside Philadelphia.
This is the moment the FBI blew up suspicious items found at a storage unit outside Philadelphia. Investigators say they contained explosive residue and were linked to the two teens charged with attempting to carry out an ISIS-inspired attack in New York. One of the teens seen here hurling a homemade bomb that tested positive for the explosive TATP. Police say a second device the teen ignited before running down the sidewalk and leaping over a police barrier was also a potentially viable explosive.
We were fortunate that the devices used this weekend did not cause the kind of harm that they were certainly capable of causing.
Federal prosecutors say the teens made statements referring to ISIS, and when an investigator asked one of them if he wanted to accomplish something like the Boston Marathon bombing, he replied, no, even bigger. It was only 3 deaths.
How worrying is it
that a couple of guys from Bucks County can just drive into Manhattan with potentially viable devices.
Some individuals will mobilize to violence without tripping the wires that we extensively set.
The attempted attack left the NYPD on edge. Today, the bomb squad spent more than an hour investigating a suspicious item near the mayor's residence.
And so let's go ahead and open up the phone lines, 800-848-9222. Here's something I want you to think about. It's all in the question for the journalists. And this reporter, to her credit, it's going to sound very simplistic. But, folks, it's not about being simple. It's about getting these phony politicians out of their comfort zone, getting them to say what they don't want to say. And so this reporter, in terms of her question, it was genius. So nobody can get Mamdani to say anything, to mention anything about Islamic ideology by name. Instead, what he always does is he punts by saying he's against all violence, right? So listen, folks, I need you to listen carefully to how he's asked about the ISIS-inspired Muslims who attacked Americans Saturday. And again, even in the way that the reporter, if you will, set him up to make him say something about Islamic ideology, he absolutely did not.
So given that both of the alleged attackers at Gracie said they were inspired by ISIS, and given New York City's sort of perennial status as a soft target, I was wondering if you had any, words of advice to any young people who might find themselves being drawn to that particular ideology.
I think first and foremost, just to make it clear to everyone that extremism and hatred of any kind will not be tolerated in our city. And that is regardless of whatever ideology motivates any person to commit an act of violence. There is no tolerance for it here. What we want to deliver to New Yorkers is a city that is safe, is a city that believes in the values where everyone who calls it home is considered to be a part of it. There is no tolerance for any kind of violence within that vision of our city or the way in which we lead this city.
Thanks.
So notice how slick the mayor of New York City is when he's asked specifically as it relates to Islamic ideology. He does not name it by name. Instead, he's against all violence. But when it came to his initial statement, he had no problem stating that the protest was organized by a white supremacist. So when it's anything else besides what he wants to talk about, he has no problem doing it. But if you want him to mention Islamic ideology, it is not going to happen. One member of the Committee on Foreign Affairs in Congress, Florida Congressman Randy Fine, says he has an answer, that is, to New York's problem.
Well, I have one word. It's deport. I mean, the fact of the matter is Mamdani hates America, hates the Judeo-Christian civilization that we have here. We're allowed to protest whatever we want. We hear this all the time from the left. When they were doing all this ridiculous stuff on our college campuses, people like this jerk mayor talked about how they had a First Amendment right to say whatever they want. That's not the issue. The issue is two Muslim terrorists who were inspired by ISIS, who traveled to the Middle East, threw bombs at people. That is the issue. You're allowed to say whatever you want in this country. You're not allowed to throw bombs. But Mamdani is covering for the Muslim terrorists that he supports, whether it's in the Middle East or whether it's in America. He should be stripped of his citizenship and he should be deported.
And frankly, folks, that's the only way out of this. The only way. Because the governor of the state of New York, Kathy Hochul, incumbent Democrat, she's in the fight of her life up against Nassau County Executive Bruce Blakeman. She's not going to do anything. The first rule, anything to hurt herself, the first rule for any politician is self-preservation. Keep your job. She moves on Mamdani. She's the only one that can take him from office. And she can kiss her re-election campaign goodbye. And Mamdani knows he has that over her head.
If you're looking to create, grow, and sustain your wealth, download and subscribe to the Pain Points of Wealth podcast at BeBullish.com with Bob, Ryan, and Chris Payne. It's your podcast for market insights, money tips, and real talk on the economy.
Download and subscribe
at BeBullish.com.